We are back with another AQ2D update video, seeing what they've done and what they're going to be doing. Last week's update, they were working on the chat text creep in my portrait, which is this thing right up here. You can see that there's texts in behind, so that was something that they were tackling last week, as well as working on the blockers. These are the ways that you prevent from going off the screen. They had the logout button is working because they didn't want you trapped in the game. Then you've got the combat slashes. They now always face the same direction. So I'm not exactly sure what that's about. They had a huge shop server overhaul. So this is fixing up the code. Previously, when you opened up the inventory or a shop, it would have to load everything in your inventory and your bank. So they've fixed this so that it now unpacks based on whatever. I'm not exactly sure how they did it, but anyways, they do it so now it can load everything without having this noticeable slowdown. Then you have the combat animation bug. So when fighting a monster, it sometimes causes the player to replay its current animation. This is something that they were working on. APOPs. Now this is specifically the NPC screens, and this is of course like a big feature because that's how a lot of the cutscenes and stuff run, and this is something that they've really been revamping on that. You can see a little background here. This is kind of how the thing looks. That's really interesting. I love how that is like a 3D 2D. That's crazy actually. So you've got the background art and scrolling, and that's very important in this one, is that the background is scrolling, unlike the current AQWorlds. In this one, they had some jagginess in the background art, which has been fixed. Now the trade-off was they had to increase, or they could increase the file size or increase the blurriness, a little bit of both, which is probably what they did, was a little bit of both. Goes into a little bit of detail on the explanation of the backgrounds. It's amazing how much work it does to do one small thing. Something we take advantage for every day is the background art, because you don't really even notice it. It's there, but it's just, background, but it adds so much. And I've pointed things out like that in AQ3D where I see a candle in the background flickering. We never notice that sort of thing. Nobody ever draws attention. It's just in the background, but it's, that actually had to be made. That spent hours, making that model. And they got 3 things that they are currently working on. Combat, which is setting up the remaining base class skills, the movement issues, walk around and server sync, and then the APOPs, which is the database. So that's all the background stuff behind getting those finalized, which will really speed up productivity. In yesterday's design notes, we get some more information. So the progress right now is the walking improvements. This is the mega list. Walking improvements, which I did mention in the last one, and they are recoded how players and monsters transmit their position. This will keep the players in sync on screen. And this is also going to help with the keyboard, joystick, and screen pad support. So for those of you who are really looking forward to that, being able to move like you do in AQ3D, you'll be able to move like that in AQ2D. That is going to be absolutely awesome. Can't wait for that feature. Blockers, this is something that was also touched on in the last one, and they've really made blockers more precise, so it's going to be much better than it was in the original version of the game. You've got the head size in portrait, so apparently based on what location you were in, some screens you're smaller, some screens you're larger, and it would show that in the portrait. So it's funny, little tiny bugs like this that, it's something big obviously, but you don't really think about that sort of thing. You're thinking, why can't you just port the game? But it's not that easy. It's a lot more complicated than that. Targeting other players. So you can now target other players, which is nice because you can then click on them, whereas before you couldn't, and you cannot untarget them. Oh, so once you, maybe next week. That is funny. The Wonder Twins map. If you join a map the exact same time as somebody else, then the positions are you spawn in a different area and whatnot. New animation event setup. So we've been relying on devs to manually add keyframes like they do in Flash, but we are going to be changing things up. Oh, I see. So it's going to happen automatically with the monster and the player animations. So that's going to be a nice change. Casting heals on yourself no longer starts combat. That's not something we would have really known about, but dead target switch fix. Not really a bug, but was super annoying. When you were fighting a monster and it was slain, the moment you press an attack skill, it would automatically choose the next closest and start attacking it. Oh, I see. Okay, right. That would have been annoying. I could definitely see how it would. Base class skills are working now. They were already working before, but I guess they're making them more functional now. And I mean, the healer class is a one-shot. The rogue is a one-shot. So I mean, obviously they need to do a lot of balancing at this point, but at least they do have these things. Nope, prepared strike is bored. See, that's another issue it's going to be interesting to know. Like, I'm really curious, are we going to be level 100 when this game starts? Because, I mean, you're only going to have the base classes to start with, right? Because they're not going to come out with 100 different classes before the game is launched. And if that is the case, it's not going to be launched for the next 5 years. So I'm interested to know how that's going to happen. Anyways, the prepared strike is borked. I spoke too soon. I'm not sure what that. Dialogue, cutscenes, and APOPs. This is the new database. Now, he did talk about this previously, and they're going to be able to have buttons that can do a whole lot of different functionalities instead of having to manually add everything in. So that's going to really speed up production once they get that going. New dialogue editor improvements. Over the next week, we will be adding our first ever dialogue cutscenes. Ooh, because I guess they haven't had that yet. In the past, we had to build one manually. Oh, right. So they have a new editor that will make it much faster. They do have one on AQ3D, but I guess this one is operating much better. So that's great. Nice job, Tunic. The database admins tool. This is they've made huge progress. Captain Rhubarb has made huge progress. It's not pretty, but it is the slickest, most advanced way of editing things that we've ever had. Well, that's nice. So they'll be able to do database changes right from the admin tools. And the mobile interface redesign. So they wanted to have the same interface as the mobile and PC. They wanted PC and mobile to be basically the same, similar to how it is on AQ3D, I guess. But in this particular instance, they really need to change it up. Well, in AQ3D and mobiles, mobile and PC are quite different. So the character walk around. Anyways, so we discovered 2 annoying but easy to fix bugs. Some bonus things we were adding were blocking clicks. This got in the way of you walking. Oh, that would be extremely annoying. Second, we got stuck walking around the narrow paths. Yes, thank you. That is something that to this day drives me up the wall. We had thought the character was using his shadow to collide with these blockers we talked about earlier, but this is not true. 100% sure, because when we started changing the shadow size, nothing was happening. At some point, we had switched to a raycast. So we adjusted the Raycaster, and wow, it feels so much better walking around the game now. Ooh, nice. At this point, I can boldly proclaim that the walk-around experience is officially better than the original game. Thank God. Hoping to be able to say this about the other aspects of the game too. Well, that is awesome news, because I know that is a huge feature, especially once they have that joystick and, WASD things working. That'll be really nice. Big goals for next week. While we have a crazy huge task, the big 3 things for next week is our first dialogue cutscenes. So that's something they're going to be working on. 100% database created NPC APOP. Oh, pop-ups. Okay, wow. And then, of course, combat improvements, which I think that'll always be there. And then he says the question for this week was this October we're going to be having the 20th anniversary for Arctic's Entertainment. That is huge, and we want to have some fun. Are there any special guests you would like to see? And that is interesting. Now, they did have people like Voltar and the One-Eyed Dolls. These were all people who were from way back when. It would be interesting to see something done with them, since they are kind of staple characters. It would also be interesting if Meltonius would appear for that, because he's been around, big influence in the AQ world, and actually now in AQ3D since Nalgath Saga's coming, so it'd be interesting to see something there. But anyways, that is the update. That's where they are so far with the AQ World Mobile, and I'm really looking forward to the progression of this, but it is insane the amount of work behind this. That is it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.